So, hi everyone, it's Nina Collins here at the Woolfer, and we're here today with Emily Morse, who's this huge leading sex expert who I'm sure you've heard of. Ask Emily. She has a very successful podcast and a website, and she has a PhD in human sexuality, I believe. So, welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Sex
Yep,
with
it's called
Emily.
Sex with Emily, the
Sex with
podcast.
Emily. Sorry, there's a thing on your site that's called Ask Emily.
Ask Emily. Yeah, I'm turning off my notifications here. I don't want my phone to. Yes, it's Ask Emily. Well, yeah, because honestly, it's funny because that could be the brand because most people are asking me questions all the time, which I love. People can always send me their questions. I realize after 15 years, I'm just like I love to be
You
so.
are a sexpert, as they say.
I'm a
So
sex-
that was one of my first questions. Is like, how long have you been doing this, and how did you get into it?
I've been doing it for 15 years. I guess I'm going into my 16th year right now. And I got into it because from a need, from a desire to have better sex. Sex to me had been a very disappointing experience. I just thought, and I'm also an overachiever, so I realized that everybody else I assumed was having great sex, and I thought, well, my sex has been okay. I mean, if you like the jackhammer and someone pounding away at you, it was just disappointing.
Mhm.
And I thought that everyone was having orgasms and everyone was, doing all the things. So I really just started on a mission. I started a podcast in 2005
Okay.
and it was like the first month of podcasting, but I was always been very curious about sex and relationships and how do people stay in it for the long run. It seemed like most of them ended in divorce, and a lot of times it was because of sex. So it started from curiosity,
Okay.
from an intense curiosity to
You
figure
already have your PhD? Had you
out.
already gone to,
I
no?
got it after, so it's been 16 years. I actually have a doctorate. I don't have a PhD, which is a thing that happens, but I have a doctorate in human sexuality.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. But I got that halfway through. So I got that about 7 years, 6 years ago. But I was doing it in the evenings, for about 4 years in San Francisco, where I
So
used to live.
you started podcasting kind of before everyone and their mother was podcasting. And it was called Sex with Emily from the beginning. And you did it out of curiosity. You were like, here I am. I'm going to start talking regularly with guests, with
Yeah,
people exploring.
exactly. Yeah, I just invited a bunch of because before that, so I was a documentary filmmaker. I worked in politics. I made a film about politics, and after I made my last film, I thought I really just loved the process of interviewing people. I don't want the cameras, and then I heard about podcasting, and I thought, great. You probably know this. You can't. It's hard to do anything if you're not passionate about it, especially as an artist or an interviewer. And I was like, well, I want to know what makes great sex, what makes a great relationship, and that was sort of the premise of it. I said, just come in and talk. So I invited a bunch of friends, all different walks of life, and just said, what does great sex mean to you? Tell me about your relationship. And everyone, and it was such a I mean, we went on for like 4 or 5 hours and I sat there and it was just fascinating. And I thought, well, first off, I had curiosity and also envy. And then I realized, oh, we're all in this together. A lot of people are suffering in this way. Many people don't understand their bodies and what feels good to them. And so at the beginning, it was just asking questions. And then I just read every book about sex. And then I started doing hundreds of interviews. I've done like 5,000 podcasts. And
Amazing. My
yeah,
God. I have
that's
so many questions. All right. So
no,
I,
ask me anything.
I mean, I agree fundamentally. One of the ideas of the Woolfer really is I often kind of say, like, there's not much that someone can experience that someone else hasn't experienced. Like the women who come to our community always say, it makes me feel so normal to realize I'm not alone. And so these feelings about things like bad sex, the pleasure gap, and we talk about all of this in our community all the time. And as I was telling you before, we have this new, since COVID, this Monday night sex chat where we just come up with a subject and we just kind of, a bunch of us get together. We'd love to have you as a guest on it
Would
one.
love it. I'm so in. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, actually, if you've done 5,000 podcasts, like we're struggling every week. We're like, what should the subject be?
Oh my God, just call me.
How do you constantly, do you ever feel like you're just drowning in sex? Do you ever
No,
get tired of it? Do you ever, no.
it's always different. I have to tell you, it's funny because people ask me that early on. They're like, how are you going to keep this going? Like, aren't you going to get tired of talking about sex? And I have to say, or aren't you going to run out of things? And I've been doing, and then in the last 2 years, so I've been doing the podcast since 2005. And then the last 2 years, I had a show on SiriusXM. I still have a show on SiriusXM. It's 5 days a week, 2 hours a night, Monday through Friday. It is live with callers and guests.
Oh,
So
how
it's been
great.
like, and that doesn't even count podcast. That's like 1,000 hours of radio. So anyway, what I'm saying is like it's never like I mean, yes, I could tell you about anal, blowjobs, and oral, and arousal, and desire, and all, and sex toys, but a lot of it is also the intricacies of. It's not just the mechanics of sex, but people have like specific questions. So when people call into the show or they email me, it's always, I guess I never get tired of it. And to me, I look at it like a puzzle too. Talking to somebody, I can kind of figure out their relationships and their childhood issues and their childhood traumas and how it all feeds in together. So I always I feel like a therapist, and it feels infinitely fascinating with an emphasis on sex. So I can answer any question you
Yeah.
have, and it's just, I don't know. I'm never, I love what I do. I have to tell you, I get up every day and I'm so grateful. I
Well,
mean,
you are essentially a therapist for
yeah,
sure.
I am. Yeah, I have
You,
to
yeah.
say.
So has your own sex life improved,
Yeah.
changed a lot? I mean, in 15 years, I'm sure you've surely had a lot of your own, a
I'm
variety of sexual experiences.
Yeah, and let me tell you this: it is not. People always think, "Oh, you must have amazing sex and you're swinging from the rafters every time." No, like everybody, I'm an expert, but my sex life's not perfect. There's things that happen. I have sex that still can be a little bit disappointing, but when I look back on the years, I'm a different person. If you saw me in bed 16 years ago and now, and what I've learned is the reason why it's so much better is because I know my body. I know what feels good to me. I've spent a lot of time exploring. So the first part for me about why I'm what I've learned is I understand my body. I know how to have an orgasm, how to move in certain ways. The other big part is I know how to communicate now about
I
sex.
was about to say, I bet you're going to say communication.
Yeah, I can't, but the truth is I always say communication is a lubrication. That I get tired of saying because I say it all the time, but it is true because the more we talk about it, I was very much having sex. It was very performative. It was
Yep.
about how do I do this so my partner's happy, and if I do something to him, if it feels good to him, then we had a good time, and that was success. And so I don't do any of those things anymore. I don't fake orgasms. I don't have sex when I don't want to. I don't really do anything when I don't want to, but I kind of understand. I understand how to make good sex
Yeah.
happen even
Yeah.
with a bad situation. I could probably make it okay, and I couldn't have done that years
Right.
ago.
Because you know what you want and you know how to say it. No, I completely get that. Are you, and you look so young, but I think we're roughly the same age.
We
You're just,
are.
do you say your age?
I am 50.
You look amazing. So
Thank you.
gorgeous. So
So
have you suffered any of the effects of perimenopause and menopause in your sex life? Has that
yes.
changed?
All of it. Yep. It has changed. Yeah, I've gone through all of it, the night sweats and hormones and
Me
figuring all
too.
of that stuff out.
I'm postmenopausal. And I have to say my sex drive is pretty much as good as it ever was. I've not really had a big dip in sex drive. I do have a little bit of a harder time orgasming. I mean, everyone is different, as you know, in
Yeah.
menopause.
It's
Um,
it's really common. And we have a common, I think you work with Taboo, right? They
yeah,
do the
we love, I actually really like their
I
toy.
love their toy. I
Yeah,
think it's brilliant. And I love that she created it for women going through menopause and in such a way that it like they have the warming lube and the toy. And so I just love that there's, we didn't see any products for women years ago about this. We didn't even talk about it. And some people call into my show and they'll say, my wife is going through what do they call it? The process or going through this
change, right?
change. I'm
Yeah.
like, can we just say call them by their name? The
No,
menopause.
what I love about Taboo actually, and I can't remember her name. This is a, for our listeners, this is a young woman
Natalie,
in her
I think.
20s, Natalie,
Yeah.
who has invented this product. It's called Taboo, and it's a vibrator, but she really sells it as a sexual wellness product, which I really appreciate. She's basically saying, because it's quite long and thin, and she's basically saying women our age should insert it every day. You should use it just like you would do yoga or go running.
Right.
But you can also get off, which
Yeah,
is fun.
exactly. And it's warming. So what it does stimulate. So what happens during menopause is that our vaginal walls become thinner. We lose estrogen, and so it helps to kind of stimulate the collagen, like you would do on your face.
Your
We care
face.
about the collagen around here, but everything's gonna, need a little bit of boost. So it helps with that. And what I also love about it is that you're mindful. So if you do it 10, 15 minutes a day, at least you're connecting to your body. Because I
Yeah.
think another thing that happens to women of all ages is that we just disconnect. We're like, why aren't I in the mood for sex the second it happens? And it's like, well, because when was the last time you thought about your body? You connected to your body. But when we're just like top up and then we're like, oh God, I don't want to know what's going on down there, it's going to be really hard to get in the mood, to
Yeah,
have
you have to really be thinking about it, which I think is probably why, I mean, you've spent 15, 16 years doing this. It keeps you, one of the reasons we started the Monday night sex chat is because when you talk about it,
yeah,
it keeps you thinking about it. It really is inspiring. Like, I think all of us who've been doing this regularly, it is having a positive effect on our sex life. Like
Oh,
you,
I'm so glad to hear that. I
yeah,
can't wait to join because when do we talk about it? We don't. I mean, I talk about my staff, but most people don't. And it's still, and here's the other thing is that it is still so shame and taboo for so many, no matter what their age, like, oh, and people, you have those friends you talk to about, now you have your Monday night group, which is fabulous, but a lot of women don't have that. They've
they
never
don't have
talked
it.
to themselves, their children, their partners. So
No, that's exactly right. And even like this past Monday was blowjobs. And I always on Mondays, it's like a long day. And I think, oh, am I really up for this? And then I go and we have so much fun. And some of the women, I can't remember what was said about blowjobs, coming in someone's mouth or not coming, but a number of women said things like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys are saying this. Like it's so good for women to get out
yeah,
of the shell and just dig in, essentially. So
exactly.
I'm curious with you, are there subjects, like I know what our subjects are that are perennial. Like, who is your core demographic? Is it across the board? Is it,
Everybody, I'm telling you, I always say it's 18 to 83. Honestly, it's
wow,
50. My audience has always been this way. It's 50. Well, yeah, it's 50% men. It's split men and women evenly. I mean, if I have to pick a core, it's probably like 25 to 40, but then the SiriusXM show was a little bit skews a little bit older. So it's honestly, I know we just did a study. We got 9,000 responses of what my demo is, but it's like, it still pretty much is all ages, all ranges, because everybody, and that's what I've always I kind of speak to everybody.
that
If
must
you
be
have a
so
question, yeah,
satisfying.
yeah, it is so sad. I mean, I have nieces now who are 18, 21. I get on the phone Zoom with their 15 friends and we talk about it. It's like I could talk to, that's the thing that I'm so grateful. Like, no matter where you're at on the sexual spectrum, no matter what you've gone through, I can pretty much dive in and be like, okay, what do
Also,
you,
you will always have a job, Emily, because there are always people that need to talk and learn and be educated about sex. That was another thought I had actually about taboo, is that it was a good kind of non-threatening vibrator to give daughters, because
yeah.
it's not like the rabbit. It's like a very non-scary little device.
Right. You're absolutely right. And that's what we need because that's the other thing about toys. Have you guys done a night on toys?
We do a lot of talk on toys. We're always up for more. In fact, during the blowjob conversation, vibrating cock rings came up,
Hmm.
and I realized we hadn't really talked about those in a long
I
time.
happen to have one right here.
Oh, let's
I just
see.
did a show. No, well, this is actually this isn't the cock ring, but this is the it's called the Verge by We Vibe, and it actually is a cock ring, but also can go around their balls and
Oh,
vibrate.
nice.
Bluetooth. I was just doing something on Zoom. I'm like, yeah, so
But it's so
but
big. Wait, their penis goes through
because
it?
in their balls, so it's
Oh.
and it kind of goes on their like taint, so it's sort of their perineum, so it kind of
Ooh.
tickles them, and I mean, it teases them with the vibration, and it's feels really good.
Wait,
So
I'm writing this down. What's it called again?
called the Verge,
The Verge.
the
Okay.
We Vibe Verge. Yeah, and then what else do I have here? I've got a bubble. Anyway, but what were
I'm
you saying?
curious what are
I
your most, like the things that our conversations always go back to are two things. Either kind of how to get interested after like a dry spell, kind of how to stay interested, and anal sex. I think those are the two things that I'm constantly, so two kind of very different.
same though. That's the same questions.
Is
That was,
it?
I would say anal sex, mismatched libidos. How do we keep it interesting? Something about someone's penis, and why can't I have an orgasm? That's
Okay.
pretty much.
Yeah, why can't I have an orgasm? I guess
Or
definitely.
am I normal? And am I normal is like the overarching. Like,
Right.
am I
Well, like the orgasm gap is certainly a
yes,
huge thing that we're
huge?
constantly going back to. And it really is depressing. It's why I loved my conversation with Cindy Stivers so much. I love Make Love Not
Oh,
Porn. I love her whole
yes.
mission is so
She's
genius.
great. She's genius. I love her. Yeah, she's
So
great.
why is there so much interest in anal sex? Because I feel like when I was young, well, we're the same age. Like no one talked about anal sex.
Nobody. I tell this to my team. I'm like, nobody brought up anal. I didn't even know it was an option.
I
Like,
didn't know it was an option.
I was like,
It's
no,
like autism. Like anal sex and autism didn't exist in the
it's
80s. Now
true.
they're
It's
everywhere.
true. Anal sex, autism, what else? Yeah, exactly.
Avocados. I
And
mean,
also casual dating. You couldn't be casual then. You couldn't like sleep with
right?
like now in their 20s, everyone's, oh, we don't want to catch feelings. We're just gonna sleep around. And it's like I would have thought, but I was so afraid of being slut shamed and I was
It's
so
so
careful.
different. I have four kids in their 20s, and without
Oh,
getting myself into trouble, one of them says the funniest things all the time, about her lovers and her, like it's a whole different world.
right, exactly. It's a different world. So autism and anal. From autism to anal, like that's a good podcast now. But not. So anal, I think it's because, well, first, I think it's still very taboo. It's sort of the other. And I think the reason why we didn't hear about anal is because we didn't have smartphones with everyone watching sex or seeing or having
Uh-huh.
didn't have an iPad in their hand, like the digitized generation who grew up with all that information and started seeing porn at 8, and now it's become more mainstream. And so I think that that's why we didn't. I mean, I believe it because also in the 15 years, I would say that anal didn't become as pot, and the iPhone wasn't even out when I started. So I would say it was like 2008 it
Mhm.
became more. So anyway, that's it. So it's taboo, and I think it's
So people were doing it before, they just weren't talking about it, or do we think people were
they
really
were
doing it?
doing it. People were always doing it, and definitely our good friends in the gay community were definitely doing it more. But I think that it wasn't as I think that they were, but not as much
Not
at
as
all.
much.
So no, but I think it's more because of porn that now they think it's an option because you see it in porn, so they think that's what I want. I mean, porn. Listen, sex has been responsible for the advancement in so much of our technology, right? Like the internet, VCRs, all this stuff. They're always like, oh, it's because of adult films wanting to go onto tape. So I think that that is what it is. I think it can feel really good if you're with a man. It's a little bit, it's a different experience. So it's
Right,
variety.
right.
Now the problem with anal is that I feel so bad for younger women who did grow up with anal, and then there's no instructions, right? There's no
Yeah,
instruction manual. So
yeah.
in
It's
porn,
terrifying.
which is not a blueprint to how we should have sex, there's no lube, there's no warm up, there's no consent, and so a lot of young women. I guess I'm talking about heterosexual couples right now because I think that's what young women are having partners who are just putting it in without
Terrifying. God,
think.
that sounds so
And
painful and horrible.
it is there's because the thing is though it can feel really wonderful to so many women if we do it correctly. So I always emphasize like it can be a wonderful experience, just like anything. We're not going to all love everything, but there's a lot of women who can experience a lot of pleasure when they
Yeah.
have a
No, I
partner.
know a lot of women who really love it. I
Yeah,
personally have a little bit of a phobia about it, but I know a lot of women who love it. But I
yeah.
agree with you. You have to really, in our session, in fact, a Monday night session on anal, there was so much talk about enemas and lubes, like so much in-depth talk about
Oh yeah,
heating. And I was really impressed with
yeah.
how prepared some people are.
Got to be prepared. You don't just go from zero to anal. You're not like anal tonight. You want to like, are you on YouTube? Are we streaming? Is it cool to say all this stuff?
I don't know. We're live. I don't know.
They're
Maybe
gonna
they
shut us
will block
down.
us.
Oh, I
Who
thought I
knows?
had my. So yeah, you want to use lube, go slow, breathe a lot. I mean, I don't know if you want tips now, but that's it. And consent, and also start with a finger. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Start with a finger, touching outside, and like explore, and then maybe you'll be into it, maybe you're not. But I think that yeah. So I think it's that everyone wants it because it's very coveted. But and I think more people would have it if they understood that there's steps.
Yeah. And how do you do we did like your sexual intentions for 2021, and that must be a recurring theme for you. Like you have to do this every year. I mean, I guess you're mostly listening to people and helping them with theirs, but do you do your own sexual intentions?
Funny you should ask that because coming out, I think in a few weeks, on the first, I thought you were asking about mine because we actually just created a guide called Your Pleasure Planner, and it's coming out February 1st, and it's going to be a free downloadable on our site. And I love it because I did it, and then I did a show and talked about it because I was like, oh, I have to do it, and I
Yep.
sat down and I asked the questions are like, where did you find pleasure in the last year? What worked for you, what didn't, and then it kind of helps you walk you through the steps to plan it for the next year. And so I really thought about it, and I really do have now. I have my pleasure intentions for the year,
Nice.
and yeah, and so I'm actually prepared for this question. Where in the past I'd just be like, I don't know,
All right, so they're called pleasure intentions
the
on your.
pleasure intentions, yeah. But didn't you just ask me what my intentions were? Did you
Yeah,
just?
well, I was curious, like, do you come up with them for yourself? Like I realized in running our group, I should have my own. So I came up with something for 2021, which was handcuffs. Although I think I have lots of intentions, but I
Okay,
want to try and actually get over like the kind of shyness around using handcuffs and kind of
okay.
explore that. So that was my like official Woolfer intention for 2021. And I was just curious with your huge audience and all these shows you do, I'm sure talking about sexual intentions is a recurring theme, but I wonder if you share your own.
I do, yeah. I just shared it, not to be released. So this is like a preview because it hasn't been released yet. We just recorded the podcast, and so my intentions were to. I'm trying to think of what is to Well, first, it's make more time for pleasure. Do you ever do any of those lists where you write down all the things that give you pleasure and then you look at your life and you're like, where is this fitting into my life? Because weeks can go by and we don't default towards what can I do for myself right now that would make me feel good. We're like, well, maybe I'll deserve it once I get all these things done. We're so task oriented when it comes to our pleasure that I have to get stuff done and then I deserve it. So I realized I wasn't making time for it. And I put everything, not just sex, but I definitely make time for masturbation, make time for touch, make time to see friends, make time for nature, like all the things that actually give me joy. But
Yeah.
as far as my sexual intentions, I want to explore more with anal on a partner. So penetrating with my partners,
In-
men I date. Yes.
Do you date men, or do you date men and women, or just
I
men?
I date men now, mostly the men. I mean, I've dabbled in everything, but I would say I'm mostly, yeah, men right now.
So penetrating with
I play.
everything, toys, fingers,
Finger,
dildos.
toys, dildos. Because
That's
I'm finding what's changed with anal is that, so, you know, anal sex can feel great to all genders. If you have an anus, it could feel good. And there's a lot of straight men who just have thought, well, it makes me gay and it's just for exiting. But the truth is, they have a prostate, and the prostate can give men such unbelievable pleasure. And I've been telling this to men for years, like, well, try it. Like, what if you can have this incredible pleasure that you had no idea? And what I found in recent years is a trend, which is great, is that so many straight men are like, I want to try it. I'm into it. And so
I
I've
feel like most of them want it. They may be shy to ask, but they want it.
they want it. And I realized like I've been practicing. I mean, I've been talking about it. I've taught classes on it. And I haven't actually been with I mean, I've dabbled, but I haven't really gone into it. So that's the other area where I
So
want
sweet.
to explore more. And the other thing is, this is just for me personally, is that so I have all these toys. I mean, you should see my house right now because now my home is my office. I've
Right.
got toys everywhere. I get stuff sent to me. And I realize that I don't make a lot of time and I've really fun like things that make me feel sexy. I get asked that a lot, like what is considered sexy? And I think it's so important to think like, what do I think is sexy? Where do I feel the most sexy? And I have like cute outfits and lingerie and costumes. I used to go to Burning Man and I
Oh, me
have
too. I've been to Burning
like,
Man.
okay,
I went to
cool.
the Orgy Dome at Burning Man.
Yes, you
It was
did.
my
Good.
big sexual adventure, probably.
Right. That's same. I wonder if we were in the order. You looked familiar. Were we in the orgy dome? Um,
But
but
yeah, thinking about what really makes you feel sexy, it's a good question. I've also written down, I'm going to write down all the things that give me pleasure. It's a good point.
I'll
And
send you a pleasure planner. I'll give you a I'll email it to you after the show if you want to just,
I would love it. That would be great. Yeah, and we can promote it on the site. It's a really
sure.
good
Oh,
idea.
yeah.
It's a good
Cool.
exercise for 2021.
It really is. I would even come on and do it with the women, maybe. That could be
That
something.
would be amazing. Let's do it. That'd be great. Because they're really frank. You'd love them. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing to me, the expertise. My joke, which is I'm sure going to get me in trouble now that we're doing this live, is sex with strangers was so successful that I was like, we should do like a sex with minors conversation. I'm just joking.
Right. And then get thrown in jail. Right.
It was just so interesting how open the women were to talking about all the fantasy and all the, I just love them. They're great.
But I have to find, once you get women in a room and they feel safe, like they will share, they will open up. I mean, I think that they will. And I just think that they don't ever, I always tell women, I always encourage them on my show, I'm like, or even guys, but I'm like, be that friend, like be the one in your group that says, hey, I realize we haven't talked about our sex life. And, this is what's been going on
I
with
think
me.
men don't talk about it at
No,
all. I don't
no,
think.
not enough.
Back to anal for one more second. I have
Yes,
since that's
always.
you don't get creeped out by the dirty factor. That's really my biggest problem with it is the icky factor.
Well, you could just, I don't mean you make sure that your bowels are clear because
Right.
you don't go out for big meal
Right.
before.
Tell your partner to, I mean, it's more like me doing it to him. I'm always a little like, ugh.
Oh, for him, yeah. I mean, you could do it in the shower.
Yeah, that's a suggestion that came up recently was doing it in the
Do it
shower.
in the shower and throw down a towel. I mean, here's the thing. Sex is messy. Sex gets dirty. Throw down a towel and have some baby wipes by the bed and just try,
Revel in it. Right. So it doesn't ick you out.
it doesn't. No, it doesn't because maybe years ago it would have, but now I just know that it's like it is sex can be messy and dirty and funny and all the things that we worry about and then you just kind of let it go. And if you can really work it like being present and in the moment, and maybe in the moment you're it's dirty, but also just like I'm connected to my partner, the energy, I see the pleasure I'm giving him,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah,
kind
that's a
of
good
going into
point.
that moment, and I just sort of, I don't know.
All right,
It
that's
doesn't really.
helpful.
And I
No,
have
that
wipes by
is,
the bed. I have wipes and I have my sex towel. So,
you've got a whole setup.
I
All
do.
right. So my last question for you is, what's the most surprising question you've gotten recently? Like, does anything surprise you anymore?
I I need a better answer for this because I get asked all the time. Nothing surprises me. Um, is anything? I'm trying to think if anything has happened in recently that has been like, okay. I don't think so. I have some scenarios of people calling in that are like shocking. Like this guy in Tennessee called in and he's like, I really need to talk to you. I'm having a hard time. I'm part of a sixsome. So not a swinging couple, like the three couple. So three couples together. And it went really well and he had a great time. And he called in about his penis size. He was really so he wasn't like, I'm like, well, was it great? Did you have wonderful sex? He's like, yeah, but the other guys had bigger penises, and I was so worried about that. And then what happened was I just said, first off, men worry about their penis. If you talk about men
I know.
insecurities,
I feel so bad for men having to worry about their penis size. Like, what a
we don't
drag.
care as much. We really don't.
Yeah.
But then what happened was, and I said, I assured him, like, they everyone had a good time. You're invited back next week. And then it was random. This has never happened before that they were listening, because this was during my live show, that the guys were listening to him. Happened to be listening to the radio. And then they called in after and said, we just want to tell him that we had the best time. We think he's great. And the wives called in. And it became this whole like love circle. I just couldn't believe there was a sixsome happening during a global pandemic in Tennessee. And then it became like this family affair. And it was just hilarious. I was just amazed. I could not have scripted that.
Actually, that makes me wonder, have you ever personally lived like a swinging lifestyle or a polyamorous lifestyle?
I've been more of a polyamorous lifestyle, and I have been with couples. I mean, it's funny because when I started, again, how am I different than I was when I started? I don't think I've hooked up. I don't think I've been with a woman before. I'd never swing. I'd never been to a sex party. And when I was starting out, it was very much like deer in the headlights the first year, and I did it all. And then and then I've been in open relationships, and I've done it all.
All
Yeah.
right.
So now
Do you know Wednesday Martin? You guys must know each
I
other.
love Wednesday.
I love Wednesday too.
I'm
She's a total
obsessed
wolfer.
with Wednesday. Oh, she is?
Yeah, she comes to our sex. We do stuff together all the time. We love Wednesday.
I want to text her right now. I love her so much.
Yeah.
She's like such a hero of mine, and she's such a bright light for other sex educators and just brings them up. And she's always been just so supportive. I love her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's great. She's actually in LA now. She's like locking down in LA for a little while.
She's in LA? Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
They like went out there and but now can't leave their house because LA is like the worst place to be in the world.
She actually hit me up to do her Wednesday wine a few weeks ago. Her
Yeah.
and I couldn't,
Yeah.
but
She's sober. Are you sober?
I'm not sober. No.
Neither. No.
No.
We
No.
had a good conversation last week because it was dry January about sex with substances. And it was actually interesting. The women, we all kind of concluded, and I do think it might be a function of age, that we actually prefer sober sex now. Like I drink and I smoke pot
Right.
very
Look,
occasionally.
yeah,
I
same.
do really prefer to just be sober when I'm having sex, which
Yeah.
is a great thing, right?
That's
It's
a great
different
thing.
from
We
um,
think it helps us because it lowers our inhibitions, but it doesn't mean that our sex is improving necessarily.
Wow.
It
And I
just
think
means
when we're younger, like so many younger women, the statistics, actually Wednesday came on that night, and the statistics of how common it is for young women to be inebriated during sex are shocking, actually.
I was going to bring that up when you were talking about the young people today. Your daughters who were saying, or was it your daughters, or you said, or your sons that were saying, "Oh, I have lovers," but I wanted to say, but they're not having quality sex. Like I don't think that they understand what that means, and most of them are blacked out. Peggy Ornstein did a great book,
Yeah,
Girls and Sex, and it was just like, yeah, they're all just getting smashed, and then
I know it's scary. I mean, my daughters went to a school in Brooklyn that had great sex education, and I
oh, I love it.
we talk about it a lot, but I agree with you. As a societal issue, it's a huge issue. And it was really refreshing to see that women our age, I mean, I do think one of the things I've learned running the Woolfer community is how many women our age are actually having pretty good sex. Like not perfect sex, not great sex all the time, but actually because of the things you talked about, kind of knowing what you want, knowing your body, being a little bit more
Yeah.
confident to just express it, being not as performative as we were when we were 25, right?
Right, exactly.
I'm going to do what I want. It makes
Right.
a big difference.
Yeah, and you're never done learning. So,
Never done learning. Well, it's so great to meet you.
all right,
So tell
awesome.
everyone again how they can find you, where they can find
Okay.
you.
They could find everything's at sexwithemily.com. That's easy. If you listen to podcasts, which you do because you're listening to the Woolfer, it is called Sex with Emily. You can subscribe. We do 2 podcasts a week. We've got so many people love to go back and binge on episodes. We've got a lot. And social media everywhere, Sex with Emily. And if you have any questions, you can email me feedback at sexwithemily.com.
Great. Really lovely to meet you. And we'll be back in touch. We'll definitely get you to come
I
on
would
and do
love
some
to do it any
fun
night.
stuff with the
So
ladies.
thanks for
All right.
having me.
Thank you very much. Take care, Emily. Bye-bye.
Bye.